the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, we hear this phrase, circling around often as an example of racism against black people, saying, even when black people try to succeed and create something like Black Wall Street, which it was later termed, it's burned down by white racists and taken from them. What is your response to that?
I'm watching the Super Bowl last year, and there's a Citigroup commercial. There's a black guy. He talks about the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. What he didn't tell you, we talk about it in Uncle Tom too, is that Tulsa, that area, was completely rebuilt within a matter of a few years without one dime of government money, and it wasn't called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. The point is, the idea that after slavery, blacks were going, oh, it's woe is me, we're not making any progress, and when they did, the white man came and put his foot down and stomped everything, is a flat-out lie. As is, it is a lie that racism is in America's DNA, which is what Barack Obama said. It is a lie that you can divide the country between semi-fascists and non-semi-fascists. It is a lie you can divide the country between irredeemable deplorables and those who are not, which is what Hillary said. The Democrat Party does that to divide us because they want black people to be angry. Why? Because if you're angry and you feel these guys over here, Democrats wear the white hat, and these SOBs, Republicans, wear the black hat, you're going to pull that lever for the Democratic Party. That's why they do it. Even though, I tell you, if Barack Obama were here, he and I would be completing each other's sentences.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Sauce King here today, and this is the inconvenient truth about systematic racism. And as you saw from the intro, the inconvenient truth about systematic racism is it's a strategy used by, I'll say, the Democratic Party to herd or create somewhat of a mob mentality in the black community, right? Essentially, you know me. I always make this claim that the Democrats, they've used plantation politics, right? So they like to label, cascade the Republicans as, oh, they do nothing for black people. Oh, the Democrats are the good guys. Oh, the Democrats are the party of lesser evil. And I always rejected that notion because, as you see through this video, Larry Elder and Amala, they'll be talking about some of the popular systematic racism concepts that's usually bring up to demonstrate systematic racism. And to me, systematic racism doesn't exist in 2023. Systematic it's an algorithm. Hey, based on your race, this is the outcome that happens to you, right? The only thing that fits my description of systematic racism is affirmative action. Based on your race, it doesn't matter your merit, doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter your gender. Just based on your race, hey, we're going to give you special treatment and we're going to give this person a harder time. We're going to give white people and Asian people a harder time to make it into medical school because we need my diversity, right? The inconvenient truth about systematic racism that it is racism. You can't deny it, right? This is the future discrimination that Amber X Kendi was talking about. But people who are big fans of CRT or big fans of systematic racism, they'll push back and say, no, this is what needs to happen. Why are you punishing people that had nothing to do with the racism that happened in the past? That is my biggest argument, and this is my biggest problem with people who push the reverse discrimination angle. But hey, I digress. Before I go into this next clip where they start going into how Obama, who is the first black president, to me he's not black. He's biracial. He's the first biracial president. We still don't have a black president. But hey, that's an argument for another time. He came in and he was seen as the pinnacle of hope. But I want to let you. This is the reason why I brought up Obama, is because he best highlights this fact about the inconvenient truths about Black America, about the sentiments of politicking, right? That when Obama lost his race against this dude that Larry Elder is going to bring up in this next clip, I think Obama had a shift and say, hey, black people aren't ready for color blindness. Black people ain't ready to be judged on their merits. Black people still want to be judged by their race. And I think that's the inconvenient truth or actually an uncomfortable reality about Black America that I think a lot of people don't want to admit. But hey, before I go into, I want to leave this off with this quote from Richard Feynman, which he's been a big influence in my life about how I think about concepts and how I think about things. I learned very early that the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something, and this is what systematic racism is. This is the inconvenient truth. A lot of people know the name of systematic racism, but if you ask them to define it, they'll have a hard time defining it. And if I'm able to define it, oh, Kenny, you're breaking it down. You're psychoanalyzing it. You don't need to, you're over-explaining, because they don't really understand the thing they're talking about. But hey, I digress. Let's look at this clip with Larry Elder, and he's speaking about race relations under Obama. Let's take a look.
He knows it's a lie. He's too intelligent not to know it's a lie.
Yeah, watch any old video of him pre his presidential run, and it's just unbelievable what's coming out of his mouth. And you would think, oh, that's a modern day conservative.
He ran against Bobby Rush, who's a former Black Panther for the House of Representatives, because he thought Bobby Rush, like Al Sharpton, was an extremist who was hurting Black people. He got his butt kicked. Obama did. It's the only race he lost because the guy characterized him as a carpetbagger who went to Harvard, who taught at University of Chicago, and Obama learned a big lesson there, and it's changed him, I think, forever.
Yep.
So he plays the race card, and more irresponsibly than probably anybody else, because Amala, we expected more out of him. Guy went to Harvard, undergraduate degree at Columbia.
Yep.
His father has a PhD from Harvard, for crying out loud. Mom has a PhD in anthropology. And you're talking about systemic racism? You know damn well it's a lie. Yeah. And he had all sorts of chances to push the right message. When his friend Skip Gates briefly got arrested, remember the Cambridge police thing, and he had that beer summit? Instead of telling Skip he should have cooperated, he said the Cambridge police acted stupidly. When Trayvon Martin was shot and killed, he said if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. To this day, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
He embraced Black Lives Matter. He had Al Sharpton in the White House over 70 times. He talked about Ferguson, even though Ferguson was a complete and total lie. He made things worse. When he entered the White House, in the third week of January 2009, his approval rating was 70%, even though he only got elected with 52%. Why? Because so many people felt, okay, I don't agree with him on a lot of policies, but at least he'll tone down this racial nonsense. And both blacks and whites felt, based on the polls, that things were going to improve regarding race relations. When he left, both blacks and whites thought things had gotten worse.
He seemingly just flipped to support himself. And
Yep, that's another inconvenient truth. Obama, imagine. When Obama first ran, he thought more like how I'm thinking right now. And I think this is one of the reasons why my father voted for him in 2008. Because he was like, yeah, like, that's how I, look, a lot of people want to get mad about how I view the world, how I see the world, how I don't have any race pride. Because to me, I was like, well, how you can be proud of something you just happen to be born into? I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm proud of what I'm able to done under my own efforts. That's what I'm proud of. Why would I be proud because I happen to be born black, huh? It's like me being proud that I've been born a man. Y'all gonna call me a chauvinist. But you have out here race pride. The pride cometh before the fall. My dad never taught that in me or none of my brothers. Right? And this is where it blossomed to where I'm at today. This is why I don't care about racism. I know racism can't stop me. Right? My dad always tell me, be so good they can't deny you. Right? Obama was preaching a message like that. Hey, if this is a quote from him, this is what I remember, because I think my dad was like, this is why I'm gonna vote for Obama. If I don't become president, it wasn't because of the color of my skin. It was just because I didn't give a good enough pitch to the American people. Obama said that in a 60-minute interview. That what made my dad vote for Obama. And then, 08 happened, whatever, 4 years in, my dad was like, oh yeah, Obama was all talk. That's how my dad left. That was the lasting impression my dad pressed upon me about Obama. Obama was all talk because of those statements he made. He pushed the race narratives for Trayvon Martin that happened here in Florida, right? And Larry Elder's perfectly correct about that. Obama learned a lesson. He learned, damn, this extremist, this black nationalist, right? This black supremacist, whatever, racial supremacist, whatever you want to call him. I forgot his name already. He won because black people, the voters, are not ready for a message like this. Let me cater to the voters so I can win, so I can get into office, right? And this is a deal a lot of politicians make. And until Americans realize this is what they're doing, they're going to continue using systematic racism as a cudgel to get people to do what they want. It's used as a way to manipulate Black America and Americans as a whole. Like I said, Black power rests on white guilt. The minute white people don't feel guilty about their race color, their skin color, Black power disappears. And in my head, I'm like, yo, I don't want a fragile power like that where it's dependent on someone else. My power, or whatever I think about, when I think about Black power, it has to be independent regardless of what the other race or groups of people think about you. And that's a do for self message. That's what I'm talking about. That's the inconvenient truth. Because even during the most racist time, and I did it with the Tulsa massacre, Black people without any handouts from the government was able to rebuild their whole business on Tulsa, right? It's the black people themselves gave up on that endeavor and decided to focus their energy on being dependent on the government. And I think that's the real problem with our politics. But hey, We're going to go into redlining, and we're going to go into somehow a lot of this. And this has been my common theme here, is that a lot of the Democratic policies that they were saying to help black people, and black people thought that would help them, actually sets them up to fail. And you're going to see a prime example of this. And I love Larry Elder bringing up this example with redlining. Let's take a look.
Lining. Black people are more likely to not get financial aid when it comes to loans, mortgages, any sort of finances when compared to their white counterparts.
Well, that's like saying I have a franchise that sells hamburgers, and I'm not going to sell them to black people because they're black.
Sure.
I'm trying to make money. Banks make money by lending to credit-worthy people. The biggest way to debunk this is something that Barack Obama did when he was a lawyer in private practice. In the mid-'90s, he joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citigroup. 186, I believe, black people were, in their opinion, denied mortgages because they were black. So went to court, and they filed a class action lawsuit, as I said, against Citigroup. Citigroup said, all right, to hell with it. Here are your mortgages. And then they followed what happened. All but a handful of them lost their houses. Several of them applied for bankruptcy. It turned out the reason that these people weren't getting loans is that they weren't creditworthy. Over probably 100 years, banks have developed a lending criteria. Generally, it was you have to have a consistent working career for 5 years, have a certain amount of savings. And if you don't have that, the likelihood of your not being able to pay the loan goes up. Similar thing to lowering standards to admit people in college and universities just because they're black. The more you lower the standards, the greater the chance they're going to drop out because they won't be able to keep up. So it turns out that these people lost mortgages. 2 of them even said this, these plaintiffs. Why should you lend money to people that can't pay it back? Hello? Hello? And one of them said there ought to be a law that stops bankers from lending people money that they can't afford. Another way of looking at this, there was a huge housing recession, 2007, 2008. Barack Obama was president from 2009 till January 2017. Black net worth from 2010 to 2013 fell almost 1/3. There was a recession. White net worth flatlined. Why? So many blacks had homes they couldn't afford because of something called the Community Reinvestment Act that was signed by Jimmy Carter, given teeth by Bill Clinton. And if banks did not lend to a more diverse and inclusive group of people, their desire for mergers would be held up. Acquisitions would be held up. You wouldn't be able to put ATMs where you wanted. So banks, through carrot and stick, altered lending criteria. So basically, for a time, if you fogged up a mirror, you could get a house.
Hey, that's the inconvenient truth right there. Like, you heard nothing about race. It was all about your responsibility and how your decision making affects your outcomes, right? And this is the problem I've been having with a lot of people who push this systematic racism narrative, is that it seems like if you have standards, they'll think that's racism. Having standards is racism. If I have a standard for my wife, someone will say that's sexist. If I have standards for black people, someone's gonna say that's racist. Oh, you're judging them off of white, European-centric criteria. I don't give a damn all y'all little race referencing or whatever y'all trying to do, because I don't believe in identity politics. I believe, hey, this works, this don't work. Stop doing what don't work. But black people want to keep doing what doesn't work and then get mad about the outcomes they did get. If I spend a year working out and you spend a year eating fried chicken and pom-poms and you're overweight and I'm not overweight, you can't get mad at me because of the choices and decisions that I make. Oh, it's because you got a fast metabolism. Metabolism is racist, right? You have people out here trying to make excuses for their failings, using their race as an alibi. This is my biggest argument with systematic racism. The inconvenient truth about systematic racism is that the people who push it just want to use their race as an alibi for their lack of achievement in life or as a group, right? They want to explain away disproportional outcomes without recognizing the disproportional decision makings that they make. And Larry Elder tied it in right there. Hey, when you give the people what they want, when you give black people what they want, what happened? It set them up for a bigger problem down the road. And this has always been the Achilles heel of Democratic policies. You heard it with Jimmy Carter. You heard it with Bill Clinton. Gave it teeth. You can make the argument that these policies set the way for 2008 to happen. That's part of why Obama bailed out the banks, because he recognized them in some part. We played a part into it because we lowered standards, which set up credit people who are unworthy of the loan in the first place to get those loans, and then you put them in a bigger hole. Right? Imagine you get into a house that you couldn't afford and you put yourself in a bigger financial hole because you couldn't really afford that house. And now these people are like, oh, now I understand, right? Why does it take that that people actually have to personally experience the negative outcomes of their choices before they actually want to recognize and see the long-term ramifications of it. And this is the biggest problem that happens in the black community, right? And this is why I vote Republican. Hey, the end of the day, you can't run away with responsibility. If you're not responsible for it, someone else will be responsible for it. And then their responsibility gives them power over you as well. That's the trade-off I always recognize when you take these bailouts, or when you take these handouts, or when you take government support, is that it always comes at a cost, right? Discrimination has a cost. End of the day, I don't care how racist someone is. No one's going to be more racist than their self-interest. If it's in their self-interest to sell to black people, their racism is going to go out the window, because at the end of the day, they need to feed their families. There's a bigger precedent than that. But hey, you know, people want to still worried about systematic racism and not worried about, hey, how's your actions and decisions creating the outcomes that you're getting right now? Because people don't want to look at themselves. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to say, hey, it's not because of my skin color that I'm in this situation. It's because of my actions and decisions. It's my lack of ability. It's my lack of motivation to actually change the situation that I am. I want something for nothing. I want someone else to do something for me instead of me doing it for myself. When the biggest driver of change is you, is your community. The black community wants change. It has to be the direct cause of it. It can't be a bystander. It can't be in the passenger seat and say, hey, take me for a ride. No, you have to be in the driver's seat. And that calls for a certain level of responsibility as well. But hey, I digress. Let's get into this final part that I want to highlight, where Larry Elder kind of goes into the school system stuff and how, you know, when black kids get kicked out at a disproportionate rate. And you already know where I'm going with this. Personal responsibility. Let's take a look.
Larry, this is an uncommon one that we hear about, but certainly an argument that people on the left make. The schooling system happens to be discriminatory against black people, black girls in particular, which is an unlikely victim here. Apparently, black women are far more likely than their white counterparts to be expelled, suspended, and this then contributes to the, quote, school to prison pipeline that sends black children off to jail.
It's a lie. Eric Holder once gave a speech where he talked about pernicious racism, his term. And one of them was this example, that blacks were expelled from school, mostly black boys, at a much higher rate than white boys. I think it was in the mid-'80s. There was a school system in Decatur, Illinois. The school board members were all white. And they expelled about 300 or 400 black boys because they were fighting after a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson. He filed a lawsuit against the Decatur school board, arguing that they were engaging in systemic racism by expelling these black kids because, after all, black kids are expelled more often than white kids. And they defended themselves by pointing out all around the country, irrespective of the racial composition of the school, irrespective of the race of the teacher, of the principal, irrespective of the race of the school board members, black boys were kicked out disproportionately. Why? Because they act out more. And doesn't that follow? Half of all the homicides that we talked about in this country are black on black, a large percentage of crime committed by black people. Why would people who are disproportionately commit crime not also disproportionately act out in school?
Sure.
And the reason, of course, is because of the lack of fathers in the house.
Larry Elder's been pushing that fatherless home thing, and it's true, because, like, end of the day, if you look at most households, the father is the disciplinarian. He's the one who teach you discipline. He's the one who teach you about accountability. He's the one who teach you about cause and effect. The moms tend to enable behavior, right? Because they're the masters at positive reinforcement. Oh, it's not your fault, baby. It's not. The father will be like, no, it's your fault, and you're gonna take this burden. You're gonna take a punishment. You're gonna get a consequence, right? Your father is more direct because he's more willing to cause you discomfort. Your mom is not willing to give you discomfort. This is what I learned personally as a product of a single parent household. Technically, I was in a co-parenting situation, right? But I was primarily with my mom, so I got more of my mom's parenting than my father's. And that's what I noticed as a product of a single parent home. Environment that single motherhoods kind of instill in the black community, that you got kids kind of raising themselves. This is why I forgot what happened. There was a brawl that happened before in Chicago. Right, not in Chicago, sorry, New York. I'm forgetting my stuff. Where kids, like these young black teens, are acting out because they know, my parents ain't gonna know nothing. They're gonna come back tired from work, and they don't even have the energy to deal with me. That's a lot of realities in a lot of single parent households, right? And they're giving too much room for black teens to have no accountability, and then you wonder why black kids have such a antagonistic relationship with people in authority, because they never They never experienced someone exerting authority over them. So they go, oh, what are you doing? My parents don't do this to me. My parents don't put me in line. Who are you? And this is where you get the high rates of suspension, high rates of crime. When the police try to pull them over and stop them, they're like, who are you? And this is what usually happens. And this is why a lot of black men have bad experiences with police. I think a lot of these people who focus too much on systematic racism, they focus too much on the outcomes and not ask a deep enough question. Why do these things happen? And I think they just look for confirmation. Oh, it's because he's black. It must be because he's black. Like, they're rushing to assumptions instead of really sitting down and say, hey, is there any way possible that this person is responsible for the outcome that he get? And I think that's the inconvenient truth about systematic racism, is that it's merely an alibi for people to explain away why they do why they have such negative outcomes, and they don't want to actually look down in a deeper level to actually understand and fix what's actually driving these negative outcomes in said community. But hey, what say you? Do you agree, disagree? Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. I hope you guys appreciate this. I hope you guys enjoyed this inconvenient truth. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next week on Wednesday. And peace.